Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast exploring storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, theater, among other areas of the arts. I want to welcome to the show Anthony Uzarowski, who is a film historian, scholar, and journalist. He is co-author of Ava Gardner, A Life in Movies, and his work has appeared in such publications as The Guardian, Film International, Gay Times, TCM.com, among many others. And we are discussing his brand new book, which will be out soon, which I love, Jessica Lange, An Adventurer's Heart. Anthony, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm
managing to do it.
Yeah, we had to reschedule a couple of times, but that's the nature of the beast with podcasts and scheduling and whatnot. But we're finally here, and I'm sure you saw some of my posts on social media. My enthusiasm for the book, I just absolutely devoured it. It's such a page turner. I thought it was really well done.
Oh wow! Well, thank you. That's really nice to hear. Yes, I did see your post. I really appreciate spreading the word out there.
Oh, my pleasure. Because it occurred to me, because Jessica Lange to me is someone that I felt like I had seen her in a lot of movies, because some of the films she's been in are some of my favorites, like All That Jazz, Tootsie, and I was like, when I heard about the book, I was like, oh yeah, I know, and then I realized, wait a minute, I was looking through her filmography, and films like Country or Blue Sky, Francis, I hadn't even seen, and I was like, wow, actually a lot of these, I think I had counted maybe 8 out of all the numerous films that she'd been in. So it was a real treat for me to go through and check out some more of her performances. But I didn't know much about her at all. But the book, I mean, it's such a great exploration of just a true artist and a fascinating life. So, but before we get into the book, I just wanted to ask you off the top, when did you start to get into writing? When did that all begin?
You mean writing in general, or this particular?
In general, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess, I studied film studies at university, so that was kind of a nice gateway into it. And just by sheer chance, a very good friend of mine, Kendra Bean, who did a Vivian Lee book, we were friends, and she said to me, would you like to collaborate on something together? I know that you love Ava Gardner. Would you like to do a book about Ava Gardner? And by that point, I still hadn't even graduated. So I was still thinking about my thesis and everything. And I was like, what? I'm not ready to do a book. But then she convinced me, you're a real expert. And I think you're a very good writer. She read some of my stuff. So it was really through Kendra. She introduced me to my first agent. So I was really fortunate to have her, kind of introduce me to that world and also give me confidence, because I think, as many writers will tell you, it's like it takes a lot of confidence to just say, oh, I'm ready to write a book. You may know a lot about something, but to write a book is very intimidating, and it certainly was for me. So to have had Kendra on that first journey into the book together was really such a blessing. And then after that, I knew that I wanted to do a book about Jessica, so I was ready to go solo, as they say.
Well, so that's interesting to me. So now the book, which I've been planning to read, the Ava Gardner book you did. So this all happened when you were still a student, because I mean you look fairly young, so I thought, and I don't know why. I guess we think of writers as being much older. I don't know why that is, but because I as soon as I saw your photo, I was like, oh, he's a really young guy. And so this is now your second book, I believe, after the Ava Gardner. So yeah. So when did that start for you, the Ava Gardner book? Was this in the last decade that the writing really kicked off?
That was 2017, I believe, that Ava came out.
Oh wow.
5 years ago. Actually, yeah, or 6 years ago. I mean, I was a mature student, so I did my BA and my MA a bit later, so I was in my mid-20s. But still, I mean, it was a big accomplishment, because obviously,
yeah,
some of my professors never had a book. So when I was
Right, right,
telling
right.
people I'm actually writing a book, there was a mix of, how, why, it's like, I don't know, it was a mix of luck and also the drive. I mean, I've always wanted to, I've always been very passionate about movies and about movie stars in particular. And I've always enjoyed writing. So I guess it was just a kind of natural marriage of the two.
So when you were studying film, was there some plan you had in mind in terms of a career? Were you thinking of doing something else, or was, because I know you said this just sort of happened. Obviously, you were studying and prepared to write, and you were writing. But was that what you had in mind, or did this all kind of just happen this way?
Not really. I never really had a clear plan or a career plan or a 10-year plan or any of those things. I've always been kind of driven by what interests me, and I wanted to study film because I love film. So I just thought, watching movies all day and writing about it, that sounds like fun. I'll do that. I didn't really think much beyond it. I thought, maybe I will go into the academic world and become a teacher or whatever, but I didn't think that deeply about it, to be honest with you. I don't know.
And what particularly, because I know you said in the book that from a young age you got really interested in Jessica Lange, her performances in all of her films. What is it about her that made you say, I want to do a biography on Jessica Lange?
It's an interesting question. She was one of my top whatever, and I'm mostly interested in classic Hollywood, so people who are no longer with us. And she's probably one of
Right.
the few ones who I was very into, that's obviously more contemporary. And for the longest time, I thought, she's still with us. I wanted to respect her privacy, so I didn't really want to do a book about her. It was actually my ex-partner, who's still a good friend of mine, who said, you should really do a book about Jessica because you love her and you're so passionate about her, and there's nothing out there about her really. So it was he who planted that's sort of the idea in my head, and I thought, why not? And that started me off on that journey, which took actually a long time before, you know, until this moment. But the book is actually here. Yeah, it was a long journey. At first, I really wanted her to be involved in it, and I was still very young and naive. I was just starting out. So I thought, if I write her a letter and tell her how much I like her, obviously she will say yes.
All right.
Just
You never
when
know.
you're young, you think everything
Yeah.
is. It wasn't as easy as that, and obviously I had to go through a wall of people around her, her managers or whoever they were. I don't even remember, but I do remember getting a very stern email from one of her people saying, she's not interested, she doesn't
Oh,
want
wow.
anything written about it, please don't write this. So that scared me and thought, okay, that's it then. And I stopped for a while, but it was always at the back of my mind. And then I kept coming back to it periodically, and then I had a new agent, and things happened over a couple of years. And then I started researching it again and slowly reaching out to different people and talking to different people, and just I thought, why not? Just do it anyway. I mean, there are unauthorized biographies out there, and I'm not planning on
Mhm.
doing anything salacious or whatever. So I just went ahead with it anyway.
So that's what I've always been curious about this, because you talked about getting emails and her manager of hers saying don't do this. So now, is this an unauthorized biography, or did she so it is, okay, because I wasn't sure if it was unauthorized or if she has to say yes for you to go ahead with
Well,
it.
the thing is, you can write a biography of anyone.
Right.
This is the freedom of speech, and also, you can research and write about people as long as it's not libelous or you're not saying something that may damage their
Right.
career or whatever. But the thing with this book, which I'm so grateful for, is that through the course of my research, I managed to speak to many different people, and I guess word got around that I'm not the devil, that I'm quite a nice guy, and I'm not trying to do any harm. I'm really just trying to pay tribute to her work and her career. So I think by the end of it, she obviously knew what was happening and she knew that I was doing it. And by the end of it, she warmed up to it enough to take down all the roadblocks, and she kind of allowed me to speak to people and do my research. And so even though I never interviewed Jessica herself, I felt like it was okay to do it. So that was a really big blessing because, you know, when you're writing against someone's will and you know that they don't want it, it's quite, you can still do it, but it doesn't feel
Right.
good. So to
Right.
know that she's somewhat okay with it, you know, it's good. It's a good feeling. And I hope if she does get hold of the book, she won't
Yeah.
be disappointed, you know,
I,
but who
I I hope
knows?
she does. I hope she does read it. I mean, obviously, there's no way of knowing what she would think, but I mean, I loved it. So I hope that if she reads it, she'll feel the same way. So, did you ever get to actually talk to her at all or meet her at all? Never.
No, no. The closest I got was her ex-husband, Paco Grande.
Yeah, because he's in the book a
Mm.
decent amount of times. Yeah.
So it was really through him and through his kindness that he spoke to her a number of times on my behalf and kind of tested the ground. And it's because of him that I know that she knows about it, and she actually has my Ava Gardner book, and she had a look at that. So she knows exactly what I'm about. And he was
Okay.
the one who said to her, you know, he's a good guy, and if someone is to write a book about you, I think you're quite lucky that it's him and not someone else. So I think I credit Paco with changing her attitude towards the whole thing.
Would you say out of all the people you spoke to that he was the that he helped the most research wise, or is it a whole bunch of people?
I mean, research-wise, I don't know. I mean, obviously he was involved in a very limited time of her life at the beginning, which was
Right.
really interesting, and that's something you can't really find anywhere else other than
True.
from his
Yeah.
own recollection. But in terms of being a gateway into Jessica's world, and as I said, making it okay with her, yeah, I couldn't, yeah, he was certainly the most important person. But I've been lucky to speak to a few people who have contributed, you know, to the book. But yeah, I think I was very lucky. I never set out to actually speak to him because at first I thought, you know, that would be maybe overstepping the line and going after her ex-husband. That's, I don't know if that's maybe too
Mm, right.
close. It was actually somebody else that I spoke to who knew him, who said, "Oh, you have to speak to Paco." And I was like, "Oh, are you sure?" And she was like, "Yes, I'm gonna give you his number, call him up, and I'm gonna call him and tell him that you're a nice person and that he should speak to you." So it was because of her that I actually got to speak to him. I never set out to. So this is what happens when you're researching a book. There's different avenues and you just like fall into those rabbit holes and you just don't know where you will end up. So next
Right.
thing I knew, I was on the phone to Paco, you know.
That's fantastic. And well, I suppose, I mean, just from my own impression of the book, that it's not as if they hated each other. I mean, they had a pretty, they seem to always have had a very love and respect. So, I don't from so it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go to your ex-husband to find dirt on you or something, right? It was like it wasn't a typical divorce. I don't
No,
know
I
if you
mean,
would
nothing
agree,
about it was typical, nothing about
right?
the relationship. But the thing is, when at the beginning of this research, I didn't really know what kind of relationship they had because you can't, you know, it's not online. You can't read about it. So I wasn't sure how Jessica felt about him or how he felt about her. And so that's why I was very cautious about it. But then he said, you know, we are friends, we speak regularly, and she comes to visit me. And it sounded like they had a very close relationship. So that, you know, the fact that he was able to speak to her about me and tell her that it's okay, that was a big thing for the book, certainly worked in my favor.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, that whole portion was fascinating, and all of the photos that of her
Mhm.
so young. I mean, they're spectacular. So yeah, like as you said, you're not, where else would you have got that other than
Yeah, I
talking to
mean, they've
him?
never been published before. So that's one of the things about this book, which is quite unique, is the photos. I mean, they've never been
Yes,
seen before, other than by the handful of
right.
people at the time. So I think people will be pleased to see those.
Oh, certainly, certainly. I was curious, what is it about her acting that stands out to you? I know
Wow. Well,
that might be a long question, but a long convoluted answer. But is there something about her that just really pops to you that makes her fascinating to watch?
I mean, she's electrifying on screen. There's no denying it. And
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I mean, I remember when I first saw her when I was a teenager, I guess. And actually, the first thing I saw was an interview with her. It was a documentary that she did in the early 90s where she talks about her career. And at that point, I hadn't seen any of her movies. I just saw her talking about them. And just the way she spoke and just about, the way she expressed herself. And she's so expressive, with her hands. And I was just captivated by her. And I remember my mom actually recorded that on a VHS. It was still VHS back then. And she
Right.
said, "Oh, I think you would find this interesting," because she knew I was into films. And so I watched it and I was really captivated. So then I went out of my way to see as many of her films as I could. I rented some from a video store, and I don't know, it's certainly the way she performs, but it's also the choices that she makes. There's something about the stories that she tells that really resonates with me and always has. Um, they're very deeply personal and very driven by emotion, and she's very sensual, which, I think appeals to especially me when I was younger and I was, closeted queer, and there was something about her that really kind of woke that side of me up, and I thought, oh my gosh, who is this person? And there is something very queer about her, the sense that she's very over the top, but without being over the top. It's
Right. It's very real.
yeah.
Yeah, she has a depth that not a lot of people have. Like I said, I hadn't seen Frances before, and when I watched that recently, some of those scenes where she snaps,
Mhm.
I was like, whoa! I mean, you can feel it. Particularly the scene with the doctor, where when she initially goes into one of the mental institutions, and there was just a moment where she gets up so slowly and her face just sort of just twists almost. It's almost like it was spooky and scary, and she's just unpredictable. You never quite know. I don't like it, she comes from that realistic style of acting where they you don't plan every move. So she probably didn't even necessarily know how she was going to react, and I think that's why it's so incredible to watch. But you, in the book, you describe the combination of depth and sensuality that I really see as well, because there you have the depth, but then so sometimes she always seems to just be flirting just a little bit at the same time. Just it could be a sly smile. I don't even know if she was necessarily conscious of it, but it's just this very daring, dangerous combination that she always had. The only time, one of the films I saw with her that I thought was so different was her performance in Country. She just was able to capture like this ordinary person, and she even looks plain in it. I don't even know, because she's so striking looking, but I don't know what they did. They managed to make her look very plain in it. I mean, she still looks great, but I thought it was like she just looks like someone you could totally believe lives and works on a farm,
Yeah.
whereas there's no element of glamour at all to her in that film. But she's just such an incredible actor. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm still going through. There's still so many I have to see.
I'm
Um,
so glad that that's what I
yeah,
wanted this book to do, is to encourage people to go out there and seek out her work, because I mean, it's not on Netflix. It's not really
no,
something that you
no,
would see easily necessarily. And I think, especially people who loved her in American Horror Story, I think it's so important
right.
for them to go back and see where she came from and what came before, because I mean, her body of work is so incredible. Um,
Mm.
Definitely worth revisiting or visiting for the first time. But I think
well,
it's really interesting what you said about Frances, because I think that film is so incredible, and that performance is just, there's something almost metaphysical about it. It's
oh,
like,
it's
where did that
incredible.
come from? It's,
Yeah.
I don't think she ever topped that. I mean, she had many great performances, but that one is just, yeah, it's something else.
I'd have to agree. Just from the ones I've seen, like I said, I'm still. I mean, I saw her, her big swings, like her Academy Award winning one, Blue Sky, and the one she was, that she's known for. But I speculate that that's probably going to be my favorite. And I knew she had won an Oscar. I had no idea it was for Tootsie. I mean, it's so ironic that this woman who is so intense wins for a comedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've always loved that movie. I mean, it's one of my favorite movies. And I just like, she won an Oscar. I'm not saying she didn't deserve it, but it's just surprising because you look at Frances and you look at that, it's like, my God, they're night and day.
But because it was the same year, I think people were just astounded how
Mm,
different she could be in the same, she went from one to the other within the space of weeks. So, and I think I mentioned this in the book, but I really feel like there's a residue from Frances present in Tootsie, because she's still got that strange kind of energy and some of like dark clouds which followed her
yeah,
over from the film. So I
yeah,
think it really adds, because the film is so funny, everyone is hilarious, and
so
she's the
funny.
only one who's got, I mean, she's also funny, but she also has that side which is very kind of melancholic and works. I think if she was just like a sort of blonde bimbo, it wouldn't
Right.
have worked as well. But because it's Jessica Lange, it really adds something to the film. So yeah.
I agree because she is still so intense in it. Like, as particularly when she finds out that Michael, who Dustin Hoffman played, is been lying this whole time, and when she approaches him, and I think she slaps him. It's been a while since I've seen it.
She
And you want
punches him
that?
in the stomach, right?
That's I think punches him
Or in his
in the
balls. You don't
stomach.
see what it is. It's somewhere down there.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it could be. But then even at the end, just that vulnerability she has, that very last scene they have together, where I mean, it's just all in her behavior because you feel, at least this is my impression, you feel as though she's so angry and upset at him, but at the same time she's hurt. I mean, her feelings. This is such a horrible thing. But you still feel that she has this connection with him. It's just these subtle things that she does. I don't even know if she's conscious of it. It's just that depth that she's just able to tap into complex people and emotions so well. But yeah, I had no idea that was how won her first Oscar. I had no clue.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And it's an interesting story because obviously she was nominated on the same night for Tootsie and for Frances. And
Right.
I believe for a number of years she thought that it was just kind of like a consolation prize because she felt she should have won for Frances, but obviously she was up against
Meryl.
Meryl Streep
Yes.
for Sophie's Choice. So I guess there was no winning that night. But well, I think now she believes that she actually deserved it as well. Like it was won on its own merit, not
Oh,
just
I think
because.
so.
I
Yeah,
hope she
I
believes that
think so.
because it's certainly a great performance.
Oh, I completely agree. And I was so pleased to read this resurgence because of the American was is it horror? I haven't even seen those. I'm not a
American Horror
TV
Story.
person. That's the American Horror Story. Um, I didn't realize that was such a like I knew that she was in it, but I didn't realize that it was such a comeback in terms of young people now like stopping her on the street and
Yeah.
where and for this show and getting more interested in her previous work, which is great because I think it's something that one should be something that needs to be studied because I mean she's certainly well known and famous. I'm not it's not like I feel sorry for her, but at the same time, people look up to Meryl Streep so much, and she's some just don't hear her name in that same conversation for some reason. I don't know how you feel about that. Is she sort of underrated? Do you feel or
In a way, I suppose, but at the same time, she is quite niche. I mean, her movies were never big box office films.
that's the thing? Yeah,
And she never went after this. So I think maybe she is, but at the same time, I don't think she maybe would have wanted any other way. I don't think she would want to be a Meryl Streep, you know,
Right, right.
because she just isn't. You know, she's not a Hollywood person. She doesn't really fit anywhere, which is what makes her so irresistible, I think, so fascinating, because she's her own person. She's her, you know, she's a hippie who lives in Minnesota in a cabin most of the
I
time.
love
And
that.
she
Yeah.
doesn't care, you know, she'll never be a Meryl Streep who like goes through all, and I love Meryl. This is not a shade, you know, I'm not
Yeah, no,
shading
me
Meryl,
too.
but it's
Me
just a
too.
very different kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so I don't know, underrated or just, I think she's just meant for people who have specific taste, and she's not for everyone, certainly. I mean, I've had friends around and tried to make them watch, you know, Frances, and it's not a movie that everyone will sit down and enjoy. I
Right.
think you have to really love the art of acting. You have to be interested in that sort of
Yeah,
thing. It's not
certainly.
a popcorn kind of movie, you know.
No, not at all.
So
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. And but it's just left me puzzled. And why do we not talk about her as much? But for all the reasons you said, I think that has a lot to do with it. Is just it she didn't choose commercial projects, right? And so she found a way to I found it fascinating how she was just really interested in being creative and playing the part she wanted to play. And she didn't play Hollywood's game. And I was curious your opinion on this, and this could be pure speculation. But I wonder, in the way Hollywood is now, I wonder if someone could be a star and do that today with social media and all there seem to be a lot more publicity that actors have to do than they used to. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I don't know. Do you think someone could be a star and do what she did today? Your best guess is fine.
I don't know. I mean, I know nothing about today's Hollywood. I have to tell you the truth, but even though I'm here now, which I find so
Right,
interesting actually, because it's such a physically such a strange space, because you still have all those things from the past. History is everywhere, and yet it's so different. And the industry today is so vastly different than it was even when Jessica started out. That I mean, the kinds of movies that are being made are just not the same. You know, you don't have studios don't make Francis or even Tootsie,
right,
like things like that don't really, certainly not country. So
right.
I don't think so. I mean, I can't imagine Jessica coming up in the Marvel universe. I mean, it's a completely different
No,
industry now. So
yeah,
I don't know. Probably not. I mean, she could have done independent films, but to become a big star like she did, I don't believe it's the same kind of landscape anymore, sadly.
right, right. Well, that whole, I mean, again, I had no idea that how she became discovered. The King Kong story, this
Mhm.
open call that she met, that her management got her in an audition for. I mean, talk about. I mean, again, it's just so ironic because you don't think of her as this person who was discovered in like at a soda fountain like that, because it is that kind of a story. I mean, she literally, like you said, had never even had an audition before, had never been she in anything, and here she goes for this. I mean, she had trained as an actor, which I'm sure of course helped her a great deal to get the part, I would imagine. But I had no idea that was how she started, that she goes to this call and she gets it. And I hadn't seen it before, and I watched it recently, and she is really good in it. I mean, I think for what, it's a pretty good remake. And just as soon as we see her, once she comes to, once they find her on the little boat, I thought it was, again, the way she reacted to hearing that all the people she was with had died. Just that single tear comes down her eye. I thought, shit, there it is, right? I mean,
And
that
that's
might
her
sound
first performance, right? That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I mean, that might sound cliche. I mean, sometimes people, shrug at hearing about that, but in her, it was so effortless. Like, you don't see her striving for it or trying to cry or trying to be. It's just boom, it's just there. Again, it's just a testament to her depth, that even at what she was, like, 27 then. So
Yeah.
you could see that this is someone with a great deal of potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was an interesting start, and certainly not something that she had planned. I mean, she wanted to be in the theater, or
Right.
she never planned to be in King Kong, and there was, and if you, I mean, I think it's the juxtaposition of Jessica Lange and King Kong. Like, it was such a weird combination in a way. Look, I mean, when you look from this vantage point of now, when we see her career, that's such an
Yes,
unlikely start for her.
it's shocking.
And she
It
obviously she
really
spent
is.
the next 5 years trying to kind of work her way out of it, because it was the beginning and the end of her career in some ways. But I agree with you. She is good in it, especially this is her first performance. The script didn't do her any favors. I mean, the lines that she has to speak are pretty daft, you know.
Right. Right.
So I think with what she's given, she's really doing
Oh, I agree.
something different. And she's, she's doing the unexpected, as you said. You know, you expect her to do one thing and she does something else. And I think that's what's really interesting about it. But if when you read in the book that they were trying desperately to make her, mimic Marilyn and just be sexy
Right.
and be, and in some ways she is like Marilyn-esque, but she also puts a spin on it and makes it different. So
Yes,
yeah,
very much so.
it's a very interesting performance, and I'm not crazy about the film itself, but I do enjoy watching her in it.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. No, she was stunning in it. I thought she did really really well. Do you? This may be a hard question to answer, but do you have a top five for Jessica Lange? Is there five films of hers that are your favorites?
I never thought of that, but I mean, I love Frances very much, even though it's a very hard film to watch because it's so heartbreaking and there are so many
Yeah,
upsetting scenes that you can't watch it too often. But I do love it. I think it's just incredible. And even though it's controversial because there are some things in it that are false, and they sort of
yeah.
perpetuate
You mentioned
falsehoods about Frances,
right.
which is a bit sad, but that's Hollywood for you. But just in
Yeah,
terms of the film and her performance, I think is great. I do love Blue Sky as well because I think she's, again, just insane in it, but in the best possible way.
yeah.
It's just
I really
such a
liked it.
roller coaster.
I
Um,
really I really liked her in that too. I
well,
also thought it was interesting when you look at her these parts, and you mentioned this in the book that there's someone who wanted to be actors, like or went and then it didn't work out, or they became famous, and then what happened to them. There always is this connection between her personal life and
mm,
the films. Sorry, I cut you off though. What were the other
no,
movies you
no,
were going to
no.
mention?
That's a very interesting point. Thanks for reminding me that I put that in the book because I do think that's so interesting how she always explores the sort of alternative reality that could have been her
Yes.
reality, but
Right.
fortunately wasn't. But being from a small town and being very pretty and going to Hollywood, and then what happens if when that
If
dream
it didn't
doesn't
work
work
out.
out,
Yeah.
which for most people it doesn't. And so I love that
Exactly.
element of her work where she just goes and explores that, and she does it in many films. Crimes of the Heart is another one which I really like,
That one I
and it's
liked a lot
another
too.
time. Yeah, it's another instance where it's a very interesting exploration of this woman who just goes to Hollywood, goes a bit crazy, comes back to this small town, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that film is. I really like it. It's so weird.
Really good. They were all great too. Diane Lane and sorry, not Diane Lane, Diane Keaton, who I love, and Sissy
Sissy.
Spacek. I thought they were all incredible.
And Tess
Which
Harper, actually, the supporting actress who plays the annoying cousin.
oh yeah, the cousin, yeah,
She's really good because you just
really
want to
good.
slap her, and that's the
Oh
point.
yeah, yeah. That's what you want to really hate you have to hate her, and I thought she did. I thought she did a wonderful job. Would that be in your top five as
I
well?
think
For
so. I really like
yeah,
that one. I mean, I love Tootsie because it's a great film, and what else? I have to say, and that's just me being perfectly honest, that with Jessica's sort of filmography, it's very much before Blue Sky and after Blue Sky. I feel like Blue Sky is like the last truly
right,
great film and great
right.
performance that she did on film. Um, and she did one or two good things after that, but certainly nothing to compare to what came before. I think she had a streak of sort of 10, maybe 12 years when it was just incredible. And then it really slowed down, and
Right.
that's a shame. I mean, that's a testament to Hollywood and what they do to women of a certain age and all of that.
Right.
But yeah, I find it difficult to find one after that that I really like, other than obviously I always enjoy watching her on screen, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't know which one to single out as a really good film, which is a shame. I mean, TV certainly, Grey Gardens was very good, and she was good in that.
I have to see that still.
Oh yeah, it's really good. And also Normal, which is a film she did with Tom Wilkinson.
Yeah, yeah, I got that on my watch list as well. The one that comes to mind, I mean, everybody really only has a small part in it, but Broken Flowers, I thought was really,
Mm,
really good. Really, because I love Jim
yeah,
Jarmusch. But everybody has a small part in that because of the way he's going around talking to all his
it's a
ex-girlfriends to
cute
find his
film. Yeah,
son.
she doesn't have
Yeah,
much to do in it, but it's a nice film. Yeah, but that's the
yeah,
thing. She was really relegated to doing those smaller parts, and
supporting
I
parts.
also feel like her acting changed. I mean, you don't see that kind of inspired madness anymore. It's much
Mm,
more calculated, much more. She's still great, but it's much more technical. I feel like she has a way to do a character, a performance, and she just does it. It's much more safe. It
I
wasn't
see.
really until American Horror Story where she started taking those chances again and doing crazy things, which like stunned people because obviously a lot of the people never saw her in those early films, and suddenly they saw her on TV doing this, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" Like, who is this woman?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about American Horror Story or Ryan Murphy or those kinds of shows,
Neither am I.
but
Yeah.
her characters are, I mean, her performances are just, yeah, they're great. So just for that, I would recommend checking it out. Even if you don't watch all of it, just to see some of the scenes is a treat because she really goes for it.
Yeah, no, I plan on it. And one thing about this interest she had in characters going mad, I know you mentioned her love for Tennessee Williams and doing Streetcar Named Desire, and which Glass Menagerie, these plays that she went on to do, which of course, I mean, particularly Streetcar is a madness is very much a part of the Blanche character. Well, I was curious if you knew anything about this, because I was when you got to the part of her going on Broadway, I thought, okay, she was obviously a smash hit. I was really surprised that she wasn't, and that her reviews were not very good, and mainly because of the fact that she didn't have a strong enough voice to project because she hadn't done a lot of theater. However, I don't. I was a little surprised that Baldwin, not surprised because he's not a very good actor. I mean, I think he is a very good actor, but Alec Baldwin seemed to get really good reviews. He got a Tony nomination, and yet he also didn't come from theater. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think he had done much theater. So, do you know? Did you ever find out anything as to why he got more praise and she didn't? Maybe he just had a stronger natural voice, or I don't know. I don't know if you knew anything about that.
I mean, obviously, I didn't see it because I
Right.
wasn't around at the time, but there's a TV movie version of it. I don't know if you saw
I've
that.
been planning to see it. I haven't seen it. I've been
I
planning
don't
to. Yeah.
really know. It's hard to. I really do believe it's because sh- her performance is so intricate and it's so delicate because Blanche is such a delicate part. It was much harder to project all the aspects of it to make it, big enough for the stage. And the theater that they were playing at was a really big theater. So people at the back were really struggling to hear her and to see what she was doing, basically. So I think that was it. And with Stanley, obviously, his whole thing is to be loud and rush and to scream a lot and shout. So it was much
Right.
easier for him to
Oh, that's a good
project
point.
that, I think. So that's what I would say. But also, I think there was a lot of pressure on her, um, and it's again the double standard. I think it exists. That
Mm,
she was treated much more harshly than he was
yeah.
at that point, at least. I don't know if later, but people were. I mean, if you read the reviews, people were scrutinizing every little thing when it comes to female performances, and they were, commenting on their look and some of the comments were very unkind. Like you couldn't really get away with it now, I don't think. But in those days, anything went, you know.
Right, right.
So I don't know. And with Jessica, I think it's very much the case that because she's not a Hollywood person, she's not really a Broadway, especially at that time, she wasn't. People were often sort of trying to cut her down to size, and you know, that's been a theme throughout her career. That a lot of people were like, "Oh, who does she think she is?" You know.
Right, right.
So that could have been part of it too. But I mean,
Hmm.
it's hard to tell, obviously, because we weren't there to see it. But who
Yeah,
knows?
one could only speculate. Did you ever get to see her on stage?
I did, yes. I saw her in the Glass Menagerie when she did that in London, actually.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I was very young and
How
impressionable.
Yeah, actually, my wife also saw it when she was in New York. Um, so this was like in the mid 2000s. Actually, I have the one sec. I have the program right here. I was gonna bring it over here because
That's handy. Yeah.
yeah, she's well because I brought it out particularly for today. I forgot to bring it right beside me, but we've had this in our place for so many years, and then as soon as I read the book, I'm like, I'm gonna have to show this to Anthony. But
Oh,
she
I remember
remembers.
that photo because it was the same photo
Yeah,
that you did in London to promote it.
she liked it a lot. So I wish I had seen it. What was it like for you, having known her films and seeing her on stage? What did you think of her on stage?
Well, I mean, I was like 17 or something, so I don't know if I trust my judgment. I mean, at the time, obviously I was completely just spellbound, and this Jessica Lange, and I had always
Right.
idolized her, so it was an incredible experience for me. But the thing is, I do remember it. I remember her performance, which is indicative because it's been 20 years or something. Um, and I do remember the choices she was making and the way she spoke her lines. So it did leave an impression. I mean, I saw it afterwards with other actors. I think I saw it with Sally Field. I saw it with Cherry Jones. And the Jessica one does stick in my mind the most because she was Jessica. You know, she was doing that whole mix of being flirtatious and being still very gorgeous, but also, you know, obviously aging. But it's always, as you said, it's always that element of like she's flirting even when she's not flirting. Is that kind of
Right. Yeah.
always being on the edge of this yeah, it's no one can do it as well as she does. So and that was right for the part, I think. And I think that the New York production that your wife would have seen was the one that was really troubled, and there was a lot of drama behind the scenes, which
Yeah.
I
You
mentioned some
mentioned.
of that in the book. So
Yes.
I think by the time she came to London, it was much more polished, and she was much better in it than probably she was in New York. I would imagine.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad that she stuck with theater because I would imagine going on Broadway and getting those kind of notices, someone may want to run away and never try it again.
Mm,
But I'm glad that she stuck with it, and from everything that I mean, I knew that I had heard she was great on stage and won a Tony for Long Day's Journey into Night, which you mentioned. So clearly it all worked out as she as she stuck with
yeah,
it. And she's so perfect for Tennessee Williams plays, and I'm so glad that we have the Cat on a Hot Tin Roof TV version she did, which I saw that a few years ago, and I loved it. At first I thought I could never really see Tommy Lee Jones as Brick because that's one of my favorite plays. I because I'm an actor myself, and I played Brick, but
uh-huh.
I actually thought he did really well, and I thought their chemistry was great. So at least we have it on the TV versions and the Streetcar, which I'll have to check out as well because she's so perfect for those. You see it in the films too. They're very Tennessee Williams like
Yeah,
those blue sky and
absolutely.
all the
I
southern
mean, she's
parts that she
always
played.
attracted to that, for better or worse. I mean,
Right.
she's made some bad choices based on that because there was an element that appealed to her, but the whole
Mm.
thing was just a stinker. I mean, just like, you know, Hush, you know, the Gwyneth Paltrow film, which was
Oh
just
yeah.
disastrous and terrible. But there was that element of deranged kind of Southern belle, and I guess she couldn't resist. So,
Right.
yeah.
Is there? Sorry. Go ahead. I do. You had
No, I was
you had a
just going
thought
to say
there.
about the filmed versions of the Tennessee Williams plays that it's interesting because I love Tennessee Williams, and I really love the classic Hollywood versions. I love the Vivian Leigh and Marlon Brando film of
Oh,
Streetcar,
me
and
too.
Elizabeth Taylor
Me
and
too.
Paul Newman is like so beautiful, even though the ending is
Yeah,
obviously
even though they
changed.
ruined the end, but it's still good.
So it's hard for me to watch the TV ones because they're obviously like, they're so TV and they're so kind of the
Yeah.
aesthetic is very 80s. So, but yeah, you can just for the performances, it's worth watching. But
Oh
it's
yeah.
never going to be as if people expect it to be as good as the Hollywood versions. It's not going to be the same.
Oh no. Yeah. No. But for just to see the performances, it's well worth it. If what do you want? If there's one thing for people to take away about Jessica Lange after reading the book, what would that be for you about her?
I don't know. I mean, people can take away whatever they want after reading it. I don't know, but what I want when I was doing the book, what I really wanted was to convey, the complexities and the search, the continued search for truth and for artistic expression, which is what I believe has always driven her. So this is obviously my version of her life. And I never
Mm,
claimed for this to be, she didn't write it, I wrote it. So it's my interpretation and it's my interpretation of her work as well. And so I really hope that people just have a deeper understanding and also go away and watch some of her films like you have,
yeah.
because that's
Yes.
ultimately what it's about. It's about her work. I really wanted to encourage people to find out more.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a perfect answer, and I think people certainly will get all that and more when they read this fantastic book that Anthony wrote. I highly recommend checking it out, and it's out on June 5th, I believe. Right? Comes
Fifth
out.
or sixth, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, June 5th or 6th. So I will leave a link in the description box below for where you can follow the Instagram page that Anthony set up
Oh
about the
yes,
book.
yeah.
Yeah. So just so people know exactly when it comes out, you can follow that and you can get information about it. And where's if people want to follow you online, Anthony, where's the best place for people to see what you're up to?
I mean, I don't do an awful lot on social media, but I do have Instagram, so you can just follow me, Anthony Uzarowski, and the book as well. There'll be some events. I'll be signing some books, probably here in LA and maybe in New York. And so, if you want to attend any of those, just follow the Instagram page, and I will update it on there.
Great. And what do you I know you got a couple of things going on after this because you have another book coming out soon, right?
Yes, I have a book coming in October, which is a celebration of gay icons.
Yeah, that looks
Uh,
really interesting.
Yeah, thank you. It's an illustrated thing which I did with my friend Alejandro Mogolo, who's an artist. And then I'm also writing a book about the Misfits and Marilyn Monroe, which
Oh,
is very
perfect. Yeah.
interesting. And I also have a biography of Lauren Bacall, so I have a lot of
Oh,
things
wow.
going.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I saw your post about the Misfits book you have, and I can't wait for that because I actually reviewed it a few months ago on my
I
show,
saw
and
that actually. I saw that.
oh, great. Yeah, it's such a
I,
good movie.
I
I've
love it.
always loved it. Yeah, and I know some of what went on behind the scenes, so I'm looking forward to your deep dive.
Thank you. Well, I
Certainly.
look forward to talking to you about it one day, hopefully.
Oh, certainly. Great. Well, again, I appreciate that you took the time to come on my show to discuss this great book, and I'm so glad that I got to read it. So I hope that we can do this again, do this again down the road for your next book. Come again
Thank you
sometime.
so much. Thanks for your support. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. And if this is your first time here on my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner. To your top left in just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.